And what you were saying was that obviously with all your teeth being apatite crystals, really, and that sort of magnifies. What's that? Yeah, magnifies. The apatite crystal stone meaning comes from the Greek word to deceive, which I find is very interesting. What's your take on that?
I might know what the meaning was before. I didn't say anything about it last time because I don't want to cloud any issues with deception, but it's an interesting thing to bring up because of the story of Jacob. Jacob was called the supplanter or the liar. And then he became Israel later. So I kind of related to that story. It's a story of transformation. You get a new name, you become something different. So this body is fallen in a fallen state. You're born that way, which I absolutely agree with anybody that would say that's not fair to us. But if you understand how bloodlines work, that's how that goes. And once a decision is made in your past, it goes down through generation after generation. And if the original man fell, then everything about him is going to fall too. And they're going to become slaves to the things that made them fall. So as it relates to appetite, I do agree with the fact that it does resonate and it can magnify anything that you say. And I think the question was also about what if you lost your teeth, you had false teeth or whatever. I don't necessarily think that false teeth are a bad thing and you have to eat, right? But if you can maintain your own natural teeth, that'd be the best way to have it happen. That's not always possible. So it's like, I'm sure everybody's aware of the story of Paul handing out a prayer cloth. He'd pray over a prayer cloth and send it to somebody and they'd get healed. That's just a point of contact. Like I said last time with the cleansing of your crystals, if you feel like you need to do this to increase your faith, and I'm all for it. But you don't need those teeth to speak truth or to speak power or to claim something over something else. The power lies in your spiritual mouth anyway. It's not in your physical mouth. Your physical mouth is just a loudspeaker.
Right. And the teeth are the appetite teeth are the amplifiers thereof. So if you're speaking truth, it amplifies that. And if you're speaking lies or deception, it amplifies that as well, right?
Right. It can. All of us have gone to a sporting event or something where we had to shout. We've had to yell or cheer. We didn't have to, but we wanted to. Wanted our voices to be heard. So we stuck our hands around our mouth like a funnel. And you go a step further than that and you have a megaphone, which is just a giant cone that amplifies your voice. So you take that concept and aim the cone at your head or your pineal gland, and whoever or whatever is talking to you is amplified. No, I'm not saying that for every situation, but definitely in terms of the dark people, that's what they use that for. That's what that is used for. And the Tartarian stuff is a whole different subject altogether because that was more of a free energy thing. But I'm sure it also had to do a lot with spiritual energy. You just said it yourself. They take stuff and they twist it, they pervert it, they distort it, they trash it. They make it seem like it's something that was bad that came from God. God's the one that ordained these things in the first place. You'd have a hard time convincing me that the astrological signs are something that the enemy created. Because he can't create. You'd have a hard time convincing me of that. And in fact, it was, quote, end quote, astrologers who discovered the birth of Jesus and who knew the truth about him in the first place. The three magi, the three magicians, the three mages. They were paying attention and they were watching those signs. They knew it was coming and they waited for the date for it to come, and they went and seen him and brought him gifts because they knew he was a great king that was promised to come. And they didn't read that in a book. They read that in the stars. So
yeah,
I'm glad we're at least staying in alchemy still, because this is a tremendous alchemical subject to talk about. You have to understand some metallurgy and how the metals work. Most people don't realize that metals are actually crystalline in form, the way that they form their structures after they've been melted. or forged or worked. Each method does something different to that metal and changes the crystalline form so that it's either stronger or more ductile or more load bearing or you can just keep going and going with it. And that is a fact. Iron's in our blood. You have to have it to be able to transfer oxygen into your system. Iron is a huge component of that. So it's strange to think about that you have crystals flowing through your veins, that you do. Some people have ice cubes flowing in their veins, but the rest of us have iron.
Right.
I studied something, a really dangerous star, one of the most dangerous stars in the entire universe. It's called a magnetar. And a magnetar, if you got within 1,000 light years of a magnetar, it would literally suck the iron right out of your blood through your skin, all of it instantly. So talk about strange things that are out in the universe. Definitely use what I call soul gems. Some people have heard them called something different. Sometimes they call them Apache tears. So there's different names for these things that they trap these souls in. If you look at crystalline structure, it's almost always hexagonal on the inside. If you take a thin slice and look at it under an electron microscope, you can see its actual structure and how there's a positive and a negative pole inside that crystal, and it does vibrate. It does resonate at its own frequency. Like I said, is that not camp lighter, but cigarette lighter or just a lighter in general, it doesn't have a flint. You strike the crystal with something and put it under compression. It creates electricity or power. It makes that little spark. So when you entrap a soul, which we will talk about, I'm not going to teach it. We would burn them. We burn the crystal to make it fracture. That's how we used to release any souls that were left in there. We never reused the gem. It had a finite life and wasn't very long. So we just burned them to release whatever soul was in there. Now, as a believer now, I totally believe that you should pray over everything you touch, everything. I'd even say, I'd go so far as to say even stuff you buy brand new, because you don't know where it comes from.
Yeah.
And just have faith that God's going to cleanse it for you. That's the most effective way to do it, because he's the one that can release those things. He created us and them and the crystals. So he knows better than anybody else how to set things free. So
I fully agree.
what happened to make it that way? Angelic war? That's exactly what happened. It was a war on a cosmic scale. There was a resistance. And we don't really know how long that went on for. It didn't last for 1 hour. It didn't last for a day. Who knows how long that lasted? They don't really say. It's just alluded to a little bit. But that's exactly what happened. And there's evidence everywhere throughout our whole solar system, and even in our star system itself, the surrounding stars around us. From what I understood, dragons control stars. There's a dragon at the core of every star that regulates that star and how it behaves and what happens with it. So look at how many stars are out there. Imagine 1/3 of all those stars, 1/3 of them went to the dark side, went bad. That is an awful lot of beings out there. There's an awful lot of that's a tremendous battlefield if you think of it that way. You have to think bigger than just as a human being. You have to think on a grand scale. It's hard to wrap your mind around it. When you see them looking at, let's say Mars, for example, they see structures, and they of course they try to make up a story about it, and it's not this and it's not that. Structures on the moon, they can't explain how the moon is with us. They can't explain what it's made of. They can't explain why it rings like a bell when they blow stuff up on it. They can't explain how they got so covered with craters or what it's about. They can't explain Venus. They can't explain how Uranus got turned on its side. They can't explain what looks like a Death Star circling around Mars with giant look like gun towers. They can't explain any of these things. So they try to science us out. Science is a religion of its own. And kind of answer some of there was a question about the periodic table too. We only know what's here, what we can directly deal with. We don't know everything that's out there. Like I said, there's some fantastic things that I've seen